terrific con. You're about to hear one of the cool panels about comic books by the masters of disaster, the king of the hill, the lords of thrill. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the man who hosts the word balloon. I'm going to say John Siuntres.
That is correct.
I said it correctly.
You did say it correctly.
And the man whose name I can't spell.
But we can say it right.
But I know it in my heart, because I used to read it all the time with those mastheads. It's one of those things you see, but you don't take, because it doesn't come up in daily conversation at my house. David Michelinie. Correct. I'm getting better. By the time Sunday comes around, I'll have it. Michelinie. Like nickel.
Yeah. Well, Jim used to say it rhymes with pickle my knee, so.
Now I'll never forget it. Jim Sauerkraut's going to pop in tomorrow. Maybe he has a story. That was an announcement just today. He goes, can I come in? Sure.
Oh, that's
Oh,
great.
you should have been here.
He just told me.
Yeah, no kidding. He's the editor.
He's coming tomorrow. He says, okay, everybody,
Yeah,
don't go anywhere. Let these guys do their
We'll
job.
reconvene tomorrow.
All right, just stretch it out.
It's all good.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Mitch.
Bye.
Good intro. I liked it.
Was that an intro?
Absolutely, man. Dave, it's a pleasure to talk to you again, and very much so about your incredible creation. First, we should start with the origin story of Venom. How did the character come about?
Is anybody interested in the origin?
It's,
Okay.
Most of them are, yeah.
So,
Nearly all.
what is it?
What is the origin of
Yeah.
Venom?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, now we started with Secret War, of course. Yes, the Symbiote, correct? Secret War.
Okay, the symbiote, alien symbiote, of course, came from Marvel superhero Secret Wars. And it was hanging around in the Marvel Universe. It had been removed from Peter Parker because it wanted to bond with him permanently. Whenever I may have told people this at my table, so forgive the redundancy, but whenever I write a character, I try to exploit his or her unique elements. And with Spider-Man, everybody knows he's strong and he can climb walls and web swings and everything, but what fascinated me was his spider sense, which was an early warning sense that if something's danger is there, it warns him. If someone's going to hit him in the back of the head, it warns him, and he's gotten so used to it that it's like a reflex, hitting your knee, doctor hitting your knee, and it goes like this, and he moves out of the way. You come to depend on it completely. And I had the idea, what if there was a really nasty bad guy who was very dangerous, wanted to hurt him or kill him, didn't trigger the spider sense? That fascinated me. Okay, what would that do to Peter Parker's confidence? He depends on this. It saved his life hundreds of times. What if it didn't trigger the spider sense? And the symbiote had been established that it did not trigger his spider sense. So I figured I got to put it on some guy who wants to kill him. Why does he want to kill him? Okay, initially, Venom was going to be a woman. I had an idea where there's a woman who's about to give birth. Her husband runs out, tries to flag down a cab. Spider-Man is fighting someone in the distance. The cabbie's watching that instead of where he's going. He hits the husband, kills the husband in front of the woman. She miscarries and goes into a coma. When she comes out of the coma, she blames Spider-Man for the death of her husband and her child. That hatred draws the Venom symbiote, the symbiote, to her because it hates Spider-Man, because Spider-Man rejected it. Peter Parker rejected the symbiote. They come together with their hatred and try to kill Spider-Man. I thought, okay, I started setting it up in Web of Spider-Man. There are two little asides, basically. And one's Peter Parker is standing on a subway platform. A hand comes out of the crowd, pushes him in front of the train. Okay, he jumps out. He's hurt. Why didn't his spider sense trigger? What happened? I've lost my spider sense? And goes on a couple of issues. He's still got spider sense. And then Spider-Man's on the side of a wall. Another issue of Web of Spider-Man. A hand comes out of a window, grabs him by the leg, and slings him off. It happened again. What's going on? And then I was transferred to Amazing Spider-Man. So editor Jim Siuntres wanted to do something with issue 300, something special. He suggested, how about we introduce him a hero or villain? I said, well, I got this character I was developing in Web. And I told him about it, and he liked it, but Jim's supposed to be here tomorrow, so you can talk to him about this. He didn't think, at the time, fans would really believe a woman standing toe-to-toe physically with Spider-Man. That, of course, going to happen today, we don't know. But I said, okay, well, he asked if I changed it to a man, so I came up with a different origin, which is the Eddie Brock origin, where he believes that Spider-Man destroyed his career, and it's kind of tipped him over the other side. And he hates Spider-Man for destroying his life and his career. And that draws the symbiote to him, and then they became Venom. And that's the origin of Venom.
How long was the Venom saga? As you say, it started in Web of Spider-Man and went to Amazing. Was it always like a C plot or a B plot while other things were going on, or was it in the forefront?
Oh no, whenever you're doing a regular series that you're working on for several years, you've got a story, and they're setting up other stories behind that, and little asides and little flashbacks or one-page things, so that when you finish the one story, you've got something you can bring to the forward and play with that. And that's what I was doing with Venom. I was setting stuff up with these little teasers, and eventually planned to bring her at the time, into the story of their own. So it took place over, gosh, I guess maybe a year or more before we actually brought Venom into it.
Who was the artist that co-created it? Or would you say you created Venom? Who was the artist that visualized it?
I originated Venom.
Okay, all right there, your words, absolutely.
Well, it can be argued that whoever drew that first teaser of the arm was...
That's fair enough as well.
But of course, Todd McFarlane.
Was Todd, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he did a wonderful job.
Sure.
It was great. We had Todd McFarlane and Venom at the same time.
Beyond the villainy from a writing standpoint, because I had Ryan Stegall was supposed to be part of this panel as well, who's currently doing Venom with Donny Cates, and Ryan unfortunately had to cancel. But I was asking him from a visual standpoint, the differences in terms of drawing Venom versus Spider-Man, and I would ask from beyond the obvious villainy, just the physicality of Venom or anything else that makes it different from, from a, both a personality and an action standpoint, but writing Venom.
Could probably go on for hours about the personality, but physically, the abilities of the symbiote, the visual of the symbiote have been established before. It was the same costume that Peter Parker wore as Spider-Man for a while.
Secret Wars, yeah.
And afterwards, when he came to Earth, yeah. And my plot for issue 300, Amazing Spider-Man 300, I specifically said, this guy's muscular, this guy's a weightlifter, he's, bald. So that right there, you got Peter Parker and his spider abilities give him more strength. Here you've got a guy who says the symbiote, and it increases his strength, but he starts out from a much stronger level than Spider-Man.
Sure.
So he is stronger than Spider-Man with all the other things, and without, jerking the spider sense, etc. So that's about the only thing I did initially. When I described the first appearance of Venom, I said he starts to grin, and then he grins, and the grin doesn't stop. It goes almost right back in the head.
Sure.
And Todd did a great job with that. So
Absolutely.
those are about the only visual things that I asked for.
Well, we got to fill an hour, so we should talk about the psychology of Venom and Eddie Brock and what motivates him. And I appreciated Venom as a villain. Did you try to turn him into an anti-hero while you wrote it, or did that happen post your time with Venom?
I didn't want to turn him into a hero because he was a psychotic murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was offered that Marvel wanted to spin him off into his own series. I declined. They said, okay, well, how about we do a miniseries? I declined. and they were going to do it. I figured, okay, well, they're going to do this. I had a great affection for this character, so I said, okay, I'll do the miniseries. It's supposed to be a 4-issue miniseries, and after I agreed, they made 6. But it's like, okay, he's got 2 motivations. His primary motivation is to kill Spider-Man. He's psychotic. He's focused on that. But he sees himself as a victim. He is Spider-Man's victim. And it was, maybe it was too subtle for some people, but that was his secondary motivation. I wrote, and right now I'm trying to do an 8-page Venom story for the first Venom annual. And I've read a lot of my own stuff, and there's one thing where Peter Parker, I think it was in the Eric Larson time, that Spider-Man and Venom are fighting each other in Central Park. They fight for 4 pages, and then child is knocked off a bridge, a baby, into the water, Venom stops fighting Spider-Man. He goes and he saves the baby because the baby's innocent. He feels he was innocent. Spider-Man ruined him, so he has to protect innocence. I focused on that as his second motivation, and sent him away from New York, so he'd be never near Spider-Man, so he would kind of forget or we could ignore his primary goal to kill Spider-Man. And I set it in San Francisco and set up this community that kind of took him in, and he became protector, the lethal protector, and protector of innocence, and focused on that. I left it and I said, okay, I hope whoever comes after me realizes what I've done and then follows it. But that was the reason he became, I was involved with making him a hero. That wasn't what I planned initially.
Yeah, and also, well, two things. One, they did try and probably would have continued with a Joker series over at DC as a villain in the lead, but it was the DC implosion that canceled that. The popularity of Venom, was it ever discussed as opposed to anti-hero, that you could have Venom be a villain and let's throw him out against the entire Marvel universe of other heroes and stuff? Would that have been interesting?
No, not to me.
Okay, yeah.
One thing I also realized in my time at Venom, I was asked, well, in that same-page story, I was supposed to have tell a backstory of from a villain's viewpoint. It's basically 3 stories. I did one of them. Supposed to do one of them.
Okay.
And I realized that when I was reading it, his enemy was Spider-Man, and pretty much whenever I included him, he wanted to kill Spider-Man. That was his very pure motivation, his pure goal, just to kill Spider-Man. Now, I've had people say, "Oh, it's cliche. They all want to kill him." Think back. No, they don't. They don't even want to find Spider-Man anywhere. They don't want to fight him. They don't want to look for him. The only time they fight him is when he interferes with their criminal activity, and they have to fight him. They don't want to fight him. He's better than them. So, anyway, what was it?
No, this is what I'm wondering in terms of him facing the rest of the Marvel universe.
I noticed that I almost never had him fighting other villains. It was always against Spider-Man. I think Sticks and Stone were one that what we focused on is Black Cat. It was like 1 4-page sequence there. But to have him fighting other villains, why? Why would he want to do that? He wants to kill Spider-Man and protect innocence. So I wouldn't have done that.
I understand that. That's the thing. Forgive me, and honestly, I'm going to besmirch Venom fans, but really, I think the only time he really works is when he's opposite Spider-Man. I mean, that seems to me to be the real, like you just said, key to the character and everything, and that's his reason for being. And that's why, and again, please, I'd love to hear people say, "Are you nuts? Venom is awesome because X, Y, and Z." But I'm like, I just feel like that's his thing, and it's like, all right, that's cool. And you get a guy like Michelinie that can do it and everything, and other people have written decent Venom stories and stuff. But yeah, I'm just like, I'm amazed by the phenomenon that came after Venom. Were you amazed by his amazing popularity? And good Lord, we're about to have a movie for Christ's sake, and we know we'll be talking about that. But did it surprise you in terms of how popular he became?
It pleased me.
Sure.
I'm glad it became very popular. I haven't read any of this stuff because when I leave a character, I've either created it or handled the character a long time, grown to have affection for the character. It's almost never, what comes later is never what I would have done. It may be good, it may be better, but it was never what I would have done. So, but what I've heard from it, I wouldn't have taken him into space. I wouldn't make an agent with guns. Okay.
Flash Thompson is Venom. Flash Thompson is Venom. He was Venom for a while.
Yeah.
Remember?
Well, I would have liked to have taken the symbiote for a few issues and put it on different people just to show that, no, that's not Venom. Eddie Brock and the symbiote is Venom. When you got a symbiote someone else, it's something else.
Okay, that was going to be another question then. Yes, all right, so Venom is that amalgam of Eddie Brock and the symbiote. That is the only, well, and
that's my view.
Well, and I think you're right, and again, when I checked out from comics for a while, I came back and I'm like, why is Venom brown? And so, no, that's Carnage. I'm like, what? And then people explain Carnage to me, and I'm like, well, you got Venom. Why do you need Carnage? It didn't make sense to me, other than the fact that clearly this was another crazy person. Cletus was crazy.
Would you let me tell you why?
Absolutely, sir. That's why I'm here. Okay. I'm here to get your knowledge, absolutely.
Along with a lot of readers and missing the whole point that he protects innocence. He values the innocence in other people. A lot of people miss the point that he had a sense of morals, a twisted, perverted, sick sense of morals, but a sense of morality and ethics. He thought he was the good guy, doing good stuff. A lot of people miss that, so I thought, okay, what if there's another character that has pretty much his same powers, but is totally a sociopath, doesn't have these. And I created Venom, Carnage, to show the difference between here's Venom and what he does. Here's this other guy that has pretty much similar powers, but no moral sense, no sense of ethics. Look, here's the difference. They're not saying. They're not. Okay. So that's why Carnage came on.
All right, there you go. And I appreciate the explanation, absolutely. So, have you heard anything about the movie? Have they talked to you at all?
No, not at all. I've seen the trailers, that's it.
Yeah, me too. I like Tom Hardy. I think it's an interesting choice. What did you think of, before we get to him, Topher Grace, in his brief moment?
I thought that they got the costumes mixed up. I thought David Hayden Church would have been a pretty good Venom instead of a Sandman. And I thought Topher Grace would have made a pretty good restaurant waiter.
Do you guys have some Venom questions for Dave? Because like I said, I'm intrigued by the film. I will definitely see it. Tom Hardy's a fantastic actor, and I think, and also it seems like Sony has kind of understood that they need help when it comes to the Spider universe, and that's good. And I think, God, what did you think of, not to get off the Venom subject, but what did you think of Homecoming, and also his appearance in the Avengers movies so far, Spider-Man?
I love the actor who played him. I thought that was terrific at the moment, yeah. I hated the series suit. I mean, suddenly he's... Spider-Man's a kid. Yeah, and now he's got a suit that tells him how to do this, tells him how to do that. No, it's Peter Parker, the kid, the human being. That's why he invented web shooters. He's brilliant, but he's still a kid. And now he's got this suit, and it sends him over there, and it does this, and it flies, and it jumps, and it jumps green, and then something. You don't need that. You got Iron Man.
Yeah.
So I hated that part of it.
Fair enough.
So I was disappointed, but I like the kid.
But better than maybe those original Sam Raimi films, in that Peter is an inventor again and is making his webs versus the organic web shooters. And that, I remember that great debate of the early 2000s.
I liked the first one, the first Sam.
Sure.
I thought it was really good. They were really close to it.
Nothing to say about the second and third films, obviously.
They were okay, but they didn't. The second one was okay, but the third one, I mean, come on, he's dancing around, he's doing this. John Travolta, and he smacks his girlfriend. No, that's not Peter Parker.
I'm with you. Jeez. Venom, there we go, sir. Venom question.
Two-part question, actually. One, what was it about Venom? Was it just part of that being a psychopath that, why do you want to eat his brains? You always talk about eating Spider-Man's brains. And the other thing is, I'm rereading Bram Stoker's Dracula, and one of the things I'm struck by is sort of how they gave him powers, and the way Van Helsing sort of lists them out. And that's what's cool about Venom, too. Do you think about that when you create a character? Do you sort of think, okay, well, what's, like you mentioned with the spider sense, with Venom it was fire and sound that affected the suit. Do you think about that before you start writing it, or you sort of go in the direction and those things come to you as you go?
We have to think a lot of stuff out before you start telling them what to do. But I think the best characters are those that grow organically with the story, with their experiences they learn. And as you're writing them, you're learning about them too. But I mean, of course, I knew what the symbiote did, and the camouflage ability. You can instantly, like suddenly he looks like, it can be, he was a cop. He suddenly got a cop hat and got everything with it. The symbiote can emulate those things, and his webbing. The whole thing about, you got to know what's going to hurt him. You got fire and sound. So those are, sound had already been established. I think fire had. And you know those things. And then as they go on, well, I remember, but you got to be careful about it. because I remember when I won't mention no names, but Jim Salacro, I just mentioned the name. It's a good one. Jim Salacro was very proprietary with Venom when he was editing the book. He didn't let other people use Venom. He didn't make me do a new Venom story and say, okay, we need to make some more money, put Venom in. He let me come up with he made me write a Venom story when I came up with something new to do with the character. And I think that was one reason the popularity is when everybody got a Venom story, they knew they were going to get something new. When the editorship changed, the new editor's viewpoint, he was much more commercially oriented, and he opened the door to anyone who wants to use Venom. And that he himself was the first person to write Venom after me, and he gave Venom 2 powers that he had never had before, and didn't explain it. Suddenly he could sense when Peter Parker was near him. It's like, okay, I wrote it for like 2 years, he couldn't do that, why can he do it now? So you gotta be very careful when you're creating stuff, when you're creating powers and abilities. Explain them and be consistent. And did that answer?
Oh, the brains. Why did
Oh, yeah, what is he? How many brains?
He's hungry. I think it was the whole thing, the whole Hannibal Lecter was like, fava beans, yum, yum, just nuts, to eat pieces of brains, kind of taking it several levels beyond that. It was just silly. I like silliness.
Sure.
I was just going to ask you, it seemed Amazing Spider-Man had a great tradition of the anniversary issues. 100 was very memorable, the Arms, 200, The Burglar. Of course, 300 was your great work, and then 400 Aunt May, really should have died for good, and they brought her back, which was a shame. Do you think that somewhere along the lines, the quality, especially of Amazing Spider-Man, when they started to publish more frequently than the once a month, and they came out with a much heavier production line, do you think the quality overall, specifically with Amazing Spider-Man, over the years has suffered?
I can't speak overall, because if I haven't read the books, I don't know if they're good or bad. Spider-Man, again, once I left Marvel, I rarely read any of the Spider-Man stuff, but while I was working for it, yeah, the quality did diminish. Mainly because the editor, okay, when I was, you can check out, I wrote 2 or 3 years of Spider-Man. There was never a fill-in issue. My plots were on time. Todd McFarlane's pencils were on time. My scripts were on time. You'll notice after the next couple of years, after the editorship changed, suddenly there was a 2-issue fill-in writing, and then another 8 issues and a couple more fill-ins, because the editor wasn't doing his job. He wasn't getting the work done. I remember you talk about anniversaries. The editor wanted, the penciler was doing 4 pages a week, which if you know math is 4 times 16 pages a month, and a 22-page book, you're not going to get any ahead on that. And that cost me both money, and it cost the book continuity of viewpoint. Because I think one of the reasons it sold well and continued to sell well through 3 artists when I was writing, because you had that continuity of viewpoint. The way the characters are handled, the way that they react. Because I was writing, I have one, not me, I'm not the creator. You have one person doing it. And so there was this continuity. And I remember when we got to issue 350, the editor decided it was going to be double issues, going to be 40 pages. I told him, look, we've got a pencil who's doing 16 pages a month. You want to do 40? He said, yes, well, it's an anniversary, I want to do it. I said, okay, we got another artist coming in. 350 was going to be the last issue of this other artist. And I said, okay, well, let's bring in that guy and have him do issue 349. At least pick up some time there. I said, no, I'm not going to introduce the current art. I'm not going to insult the current artist by bringing in someone else. So you notice, okay, issue 350, 351, 350. I think 353 was 2 issues of fill-in that took the book away from me because we were so far behind. I think, I don't know what they're doing these days. They're rebooting everything every 2 years. They're desperate. They have no idea how to get the audience. I think they've lost a huge amount of audience for what they're doing today. On the other hand, they've got a solid audience. It's small, but if you brought like me or anyone back and do old school stuff, you probably wouldn't bring back that old audience because they're off doing other things. and the new audience would like it, it'd probably be death. So, okay, I think the quality has fallen, but that's just my opinion. Sales have fallen tremendously. I remember when doing Iron Man, we started doing Bob Layton and I were book-writing Iron Man. It was selling about 185,000 copies a month. And it was very middle of the road. And when we left, it was like 235,000 a month. These days, you look at the top 100 comics, anything below the top 10 isn't even making 10,000 issues a month. I don't know what they can do. I don't know. Just go stick to movies, maybe.
Well, that's the transition. Now is the majority of fans are watching the film and television products versus the comics. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, if you wanted Spider-Man, with the exception of the short-lived television series, we got our Spider-Man fix either in the newspaper or in the comics and everything. We're back to Venom, the relationship between the symbiote and Eddie Brock. And have we ever learned the symbiote's backstory? Does he come from a planet
Oh, yeah.
of symbiotes?
They actually did a 4-part flip books in a series with Scarlet Spider on one side and Planet of the Symbiotes. In fact, the movie makers said that they based their movie on Lethal Protector and Planet of the Symbiotes.
Oh, wow. So the movie come out.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Too many symbiotes.
Well, I can appreciate that, but again, you do have to come up with a backstory that's separate from Secret Wars, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. Other than just, you remember the movie The Blob?
Of course.
Well, that's where Venom came from, apparently, because he landed in the last Sam Raimi just in a meteorite in Central Park.
That's right. James Arness in the original as the Blob, as I recall?
No, you're thinking of the thing.
I am thinking of the thing. Shame on me. Steve McQueen.
There was a bunch of jelly that was the Blob.
That's right. Steve McQueen. There we go. And if anyone has a white Vega in the parking lot, your lights are flashing. Lights are flashing. Any other Spider-Man or Venom questions? Hell, and again, if it's not disrespectful, happy to talk Iron Man as well, because, good Lord, neat stuff. But, I was going to say, I don't want to hurt the Venom fans, and especially this dude who's wearing the t-shirt, so you better not talk about Spider-Man, I better talk about Venom, for God's sake. Good Lord. But, no, any other thoughts or questions and stuff, guys? Sir?
Enough that this is, Spider-Man's webbing we know dissolves. What does Venom leave all over the city?
That's a good question.
Dissolve.
I don't think you want to know.
It's fantastic. Oh my God, sir, back there.
What was your biggest takeaway from the Maximum Carnage series?
That wasn't my idea. The editor and Jim Salopin was very good when he was editing it. He gave me a great deal of freedom to write the kind of stories I wanted to write. When the new editor came in, he was more hands-on, more commercial. He wanted to make it successful and make money. And I remember he wanted to do, he said, we're going to bring in Peter Parker's ostensibly dead parents.
Yeah.
I juggled that subplot for a year without knowing what they were. He didn't know if there were his real parents, if there were robots, if there were aliens. He just thought it'd be cool to have the parents come back. So I had to spend a page every month juggling these characters. I didn't know what they were.
Wow.
So, and Maximum Carnage was he was big on crossovers and guest stars and all this. And the last year or so, I was just treading water, trying to stay alive. That's the reason I finally left the book. I realized this when, again, looking up for this 8-page Venom story, realized they pointed out something I did in an issue of just the adjectiveless Spider-Man during Maximum Carnage that I had written. I had no memory of writing that story.
Wow.
I looked up, where's my name? Yeah, because I was, like I say, I was just doing the best I could to try to be entertaining with stories I didn't know anything about or care about.
And forgive me, was this leading up to the Clone Saga, the original Clone Saga, or was this?
Oh yeah, I left before the Clone Saga.
Okay, because
I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, well, honestly, man, but it sounds like the same problem that those creators had in terms of trying to satisfy the commercial needs of Marvel, but still telling a satisfying story and everything. And of course, that's the trick, that the successful creators are able to do.
I'm a big believer, you do something, you do a good story,
Yeah.
people don't want it. Don't worry about selling. The quality will sell if you do a good story.
Damn straight, absolutely, man. But yeah, that's, wow. I mean, no, it's fascinating. Well, Joe Rubenstein was just on 2 hours ago, and we were talking about sometimes it's like, do people who read the stories and love the stories want to know about some of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes with the business and everything? And it's like, well, sometimes that informs the product that we get. And as much as you don't want to go over, bad feelings or whatever, or disagreements and stuff like that, again, I mean, we're left with the product every month, and it's got to come out, as you said, it's got to come out every month, hence the 2 fill-ins that you had to suffer through.
There was just 2 of the fill-ins. There were about 10.
There you go.
But I don't know if you guys care about the stuff about until afterwards, because the only things you guys really need to tell us if you like the stories, if you like the comics. That's what you're paying for, not our problems.
Well, again, I guess because I do the podcast and stuff, sometimes I am interested in the behind the scenes
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
I was too. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, well,
As
yeah.
a fan,
Yeah, and again, not to point fingers at people. You ruined Spider-Man as far as editors and people that are misjudged in terms of what they do. But no, it is. It's like, well, where did things go wrong when there were a bunch of very talented? I mean, even during the Clone Saga, very talented creators and stuff, writers and artists. They're excellent. But again, it's feeding the beast. Yikes. Yeesh. Sir.
Yeah, you were mentioning before about Flash Thompson when he
Agent
took
Venom.
over. And Flash Thompson, he had this great role as first as an enemy of Peter Parker and then as a best friend, and then they had him as a hobgoblin, very briefly as set up as a hobgoblin.
Yeah.
And so what was the thought process of having him take over, in a sense, for Eddie Brock for a period of time? I didn't, the whole rationale, what was...
I never read those stories. I don't know.
Yeah, I talked to Rick about it on my podcast and stuff, and my guess was, to have obviously this would be with a different person and a chance to make a potentially more heroic character, but it had more of that Jekyll and Hyde feel of if he's with the symbiote for too long, the symbiote will take over. So there was the danger. It was an interesting exercise for me as a reader. And I think Rick, again, is a competent writer. But, yeah, again, it's like, no, Venom is Eddie Brock, and that's the relationship. And again, in fact, my conversation with Stegman, we did a podcast leading up to the con, and he said, they balance each other out, Peter Parker and Eddie Brock, and it's like, they kind of need to be together. I don't know. Donny Cates, everyone liking Donny Cates' current run on Venom? Is it, I see a couple nods. All right, there we go. I see a few nods and stuff. And Donnie's a very talented writer. It's Eddie again.
Well, just because I haven't read this stuff doesn't mean I'm condemning it. I just, like I say, it's just a care of that. I think these are great stuff and it's popular, so you can't argue with that.
No, and I get too, I would imagine from a writer's standpoint with creators and stuff, it's almost like a girlfriend. So it's like, all right, that was my time with that girl, and now I'm moving on to other relationships. Okay. Come on. All right, fair enough. Who else? Sir.
I'm just curious if you had been able to do Venom as a woman like you had planned, would you have done was there any sort of stories you had in mind or something you would have done different?
Well, I'm sure it would have done different because her motivations were completely different from Eddie Brock's. But I never got to the point of figuring out stories. So I just had the general concept and motivation for the character when I brought it to Jim Salvador and changed it to Eddie Brock. And then I just kept moving in that direction. So I've never really thought about any future stories with the original idea.
Were there other Eddie Brock stories that you didn't get a chance to tell? Obviously, you say you're struggling with this 8-pager, or not struggling, but trying to find the focus.
The struggling I'm doing with the 8-pager is because they didn't tell me it was going to be within continuity. I can't keep continuity straight with Marvel. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they've done. So I come up with stuff. I agreed to do it because I was going to do a story with a character they had created in Amazing Spider-Man called Humbug. He's a silly character, but he's an interesting character. He was a entomologist working at Empire State University. His funding was canceled, and it sent him off the deep end because the insects were his friends. He was that into it, so he became a villain called Humbug. He wore these bandoliers of Walkmans. It would be, what do you call them today?
Like iPods or MP3 players.
These days. But, and he would use the magnified sounds of insects as weapons, you know. Oh yeah? Well, take this. Learn to fear the cry of the Australian dung beetle. It was silly, but it was funny. It was a character. But the thing is, the reason he would, I thought he would go good with Venom because, first off, he's a silly character. You wouldn't expect him to stand up against Venom. But what does he use as a weapon? Sounds. One of the two things that can hurt Venom. Also, there's the connection. Venom considers himself a villain. A victim, thank you very much. Because a victim, and he had been wrong. Humbug, the guy, I forget the professor's name, considers himself a victim. He was wrong. That could be something that could touch that, made an ending, an unexpected ending. First off, you see the silly guy who's taking on Venom, and then you have this thing at the end where, you know, Venom understands this guy, where he comes from. They don't kill each other. I was doing my research, and looked up and found the last time, first off, they gave Humbug superpowers, because nobody seems to be able to write characters who don't have superpowers. They made him join a superhero, or a group, a hero group, because you can't have anybody who's not in a hero group. And then at the very end, the last guy who wrote him had Shang-Chi tear his head off. Kind of hard to have a character that's not a head. You know. So, and I looked up Black Cat. When I was writing it, there was one Black Cat, and like you look up the Marvel page online, she's got like 15, 16 Black Cats. There's Zombie Black Cat, there's Venomized Black Cat, there's Earth 12 Black Cat, all this stuff. I can't get that, so I kept running into, they wanted to use that, I couldn't use Humbug, and they wanted to use a character that Venom had fought, and just tell the story from her viewpoint. I could see that, but I kept running into things. I would get something. I remember the editor I'm working for loved the plot I came up with. 4 days later, he came out with all these things. He had set it up that he's called a chain of command. I said, well, next time we see him, they did this, and they didn't talk about that. Oh, I'm supposed to put in continuity? I don't understand. Okay, and so I made changes, but then it negated something else that they'd done over the years. And that's the reason that I've had the problem with the character.
Understood. Given that it's an 8-pager as well, are those tough to write? Because the brevity of it?
They're tough to write well.
Sure.
They're tough to do something interesting. You have to kind of take, you know, shortcuts. On the other hand, Roger Stern wrote one of the best Spider-Man stories. The kid who loves Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
That was a short story. So
absolutely.
Sometimes lightning strikes. It hasn't hit me lately, but we can hope for the future. But
I understand. Sir, please.
Yeah, I was just you were gonna have a woman originally as Venom. So the first part of the question is, did you actually have, did you get as far as like developing a name, or, I mean, other than, you know, why she hated him? And if you had, I was thinking, I mean, if you don't count the Black Cat from Amazing Spider-Man 194, who was villain but also almost like a lover of Peter Parker, that would have been very significant to have the first great female villain in the Spider-Man history. That would have been something. I mean, I don't know if you thought about that, how that would have impacted his history going forward.
I did very little thinking beyond the motivations, because I was still in the process of putting teasers and setting up the character. As far as the name Venom came from Eddie Brock's. He was, after he lost his credentials as a real reporter, he was doing like aliens ate my mother stories for the tabloids and spewing venom against politicians and stuff. I doubt seriously if the woman would have been named Venomette. But
No, like, you know, like, I mean, he was Eddie Brock and, you know, like...
no, I didn't have a name.
Okay.
I didn't have any
Okay.
other than the origin.
Okay.
Anything.
Were there other aspects of Eddie Brock without the symbiote to explore?
Oh, I think many. I mean, I got into his that there's a character named Anne Wade in the movie. Well, that's another character I came up with. She was his ex-wife, Eddie Brock's ex-wife. I don't know if she's actually his wife or his ex-wife in the movie. But yeah, I think I introduced his parents, his father, definitely at one point. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to explore.
Interesting. So,
Did you ever meet Steve Ditko? And
well, that's a great question, is with his passing.
Never did, you know.
Talking about his influence on you. I mean, the story I've heard, and I forget if it's in that British documentary, Searching for Steve Ditko, where they said that Stan and Steve had very different ideas. Ditko being a big Ayn Rand guy and everything, where Spider-Man would swing over a group of protesters, college students or something, and he'd say, "Look at those dirty hippies." And then Stan would come in and erase it and put, "I'm with you, kids." I mean, how did Ditko influence you?
I never met Steve. He drew a couple of backup stories that I wrote along the way. Never, communicated with him at all. I started reading Spider-Man when I was in college, and I think the first issue was like 65 or 66, which it was already John Romita. So Ditko didn't really influence me at all.
And that's interesting to learn as time has gone on, that Romita Sr. really did write a lot of those stories, and at least plot, it started with the plot, Stan dialogued a lot, but that I know that as time has gone on, I think Romita Sr. has claimed a lot more, and rightfully so. It started with me, and I know he's told anecdotes, and I've heard from John Jr. as well, that they'd be taking a car trip and stuff, and literally, what do you think if Spider-Man did this time? And stuff like that. So, did Todd ever talk about Todd's influence on Venom?
Todd's pictures, well, I don't know if you know how comics were written back then. There was something called a marvel. Instead of writing a full script, which is mostly what's done today, and most of it DC's always doing it, was done Marvel style. Basically, the writer would write a plot. Mine were about 5 or 6 pages, prose, single-spaced. That was sent to the penciler. The penciler would break down the story and the visuals, and the artwork was sent to the writer, the dialogue, sound effects, captions, etc. Then it went to the letterer, and the inker, and the colors. So I was writing my dialogue from Todd McFarlane's pictures, and they were wonderful. They were exciting, they were new. He's a terrific storyteller, told the stories clearly. He was thoroughly professional. I remember one point, I said, I try to...
No, we're good. Yeah.
I know, we'll get notice back there. There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, I try to do stuff with the artist, and the artist is going to draw better if he's drawing something he or she likes. So I asked Todd once, through Jim Salmacro, if there's any characters he'd like to write. And Todd, and this was just early on, and Todd's reply, and then through Jim Salmacro, was he knew he didn't want to seem pushy or anything. He wouldn't mind writing a character, drawing a character with a cape. Okay, that doesn't limit me much. So I did a story with the Prowler in a cape. But he didn't try to influence, tried to put his stuff in. He drew what was in the plot. It helped make my dialogue more fun, because I was having fun working from those pictures. So he had a very strong influence on my writing everywhere, not just
Who else got Venom right, as far as other artists that you worked with?
There was someone?
No, other artists.
Oh, artists?
Yeah, artists.
Oh, I don't know. God has been drawn so many different ways by different people. I think Todd's is...
Well, you said Larson obviously followed Todd, right? He did a lot of, didn't he do so well?
Oh, it was funny. Eric doesn't like me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why he hates me, actually.
Ah.
But no, he wrote a letter to Wizard Magazine calling me a clown, calling my work stupid. And he said, he was one of these guys who said, Venom isn't it? It's a cliche, he just wants to kill Spider-Man. Don't dismiss the idea that nobody else wanted to do that. But he said, well, Todd came in, Todd gave him this, Todd gave him the big long tongue and the drool. Eric gave him that. So he's giving, you know, the credit to other people, to credit to Todd for things that I created, things that he himself created. So I thought it was a bit cartoony, and the whole big John, so forth. It was okay. But gosh, you know, look at the way he's drawn now. Everybody's like 80 feet tall, and some. Can you hear that? I'm talking about it. Okay, 80 feet tall. He's got, you know, I don't know. I haven't written him with anyone else since then. Well, there was that one in Ron Lim joined, that's right. In issue 150, I did another 8-pager. But Ron's good. I like Ron.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Man, crazy stuff, man. Again, it's surprising to hear. I was gonna, well, and again, do you want it, you don't want to, it sounds like you don't want to name who the Predator was after Jim Southbrook.
No, I'm glad nobody could look that up. There's stuff
Yeah, we'll
on
look
it.
at it. That's all right, that's what Google is for. No,
I don't like to talk about negatively about fellow professionals, but someone asks me a question and I'll answer it,
I hear you.
except by name.
No, I understand. Any other Venom thoughts, kids? Sir?
Why was Carnage wrote as like a weird offspring of Venom and not given like his own backstory?
Because I didn't want symbiotes to overrun Marvel Universe, which they've done since. I don't like, you know, you have Superman, they have 1,200 people from Krypton, he starts being unique. Right now I saw a panel from a comic that was reprinted that had 5 spider characters in it. And Spider-Man, Kid Arachnid, Silk, 2 others.
Yep, King.
The more times, I didn't want more symbiotes, but I wanted to show the difference between, you know, Venom and a Venom that had no morality or ethics. So I thought the best way to do that was to have Venom spawn one, rather than, and it spawned on Earth, so it's different, instead of, you know, being from another planet. And that was the reason for the Carnage's difference. Well, the Carnage symbiote was more affected by Cletus Cassidy than these Venom symbiotes affected by Eddie Brock, became more vicious, more psychopathic, and so forth. And that's because he was born on Earth. And in Lethal Protector, I realized what I'd done. I'd opened the door for more symbiotes, so I made sure that they took the last 5 seeds from Venom to create 5 more symbiotes. At the end, I turned them to dust. I thought, okay, no more fast symbiotes in Marvel. Yeah, right.
They always find out.
I should have known.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, that's why.
Is that heartbreaking, honestly, as a work-for-hire guy, in terms of you create something and then, you know, I mean, obviously, intellectually you understand that it's not your character, they can do what they want, but yeah, I mean, is that after, you know, your service, is it kind of heartbreaking?
Not heartbreak, it's disappointing.
Okay.
It didn't break my heart. I know what I was doing. No one put a gun to my head and create a character.
Sure.
No one put a gun to my head and said, quit. So, but it was disappointing to see things that I wouldn't have done, but, you know, you can do that. I did things to people when I took over series and stuff that I thought was better, so I'll take the blame too.
It's funny when you said that Todd had his recommendation that he wanted a cape, I wondered if you were going to say that maybe there were elements of Spawn that came from Venom, and I wonder if you ever, thought about that.
Not really.
Okay. I mean, I kind of see the Spider-Man in Spawn a little bit in his design, but that's me.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's designed by the same guy that made me design, but as far as character stuff, I didn't know.
Sure. I just thought a little bit more of like his, when Spawn was being extreme, that it was kind of in that same vein as Venom's extreme behavior and stuff, but whatever.
Okay.
But, I know you've been doing recently some other licensed characters in prose. Maybe it's been a while, but did you do like some Green Hornet stories and stuff for Moonstone? What do you do? What do you do?
No, I was supposed to, but they never sent me the Bible.
Oh, shit.
Never followed up.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
So what are you doing then?
I'm doing a couple of Kickstarters.
Excellent. Tell us about the Kickstarters, man.
Oh, there's a character called The Living Corpse. There are a couple of guys in Jersey and or Maryland do. And it's pretty cool stuff. They asked me if I do a story. I said, oh, okay.
Is it prose or is it comics?
No, it's comics.
Okay.
Comics. It's the Kickstarter's going to start. You come to my table, I've got some of the early artwork. And so
Fantastic.
it's a character called Mac Hex I introduced. And it's kind of a team up between these two guys. And it's fun.
Hey man, honestly, Superman, all the other Iron Man, all the various, certainly your runs on Spider-Man, beautiful stuff. And yeah, we want to follow your work and we want to continue to enjoy new David Michelinie creations.
Okay, there's the other Kickstarter then.
Talk to me.
Well, Brett Blevins, you know the artist, Brett Blevins, great artist. He and I did something called the Boss Chronicles for Epic Comics back in the 80s. And he and I both signed contracts to do a one-shot Kickstarter for a guy named Drew Ford, who was responsible for putting the 6 stories we did before into a trade paperback a few years ago. And he kickstarts, gets the funding, and then IDW publishes. So
Great.
we're going to see if a one-shot will work, and if it does, then we'll do more.
Have you launched the Kickstarter or is it still coming?
No, I think it's going to start in October as well. I'm not sure. Brett couldn't start drawing until September or something.
Is this your first forays into crowdfunding as far as?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? How about that? I mean, I
Let you know if we get the money.
Well, and I respect that, absolutely. No, honestly, man, I'm really glad because you know that in your years at Marvel, the pinnacle, I'm watching the clock as well. The pinnacle was to draw and write for a DC or Marvel. And now, as I'm sure you're well aware, it seems to be the new dynamic as far as being a pro is make your name at DC and Marvel, and then, hey, by the way, okay, fans, join me over here. I'm making this other stuff. And it really seems like, as I speak to creators that are younger and stuff, that, hey, I'm going to do my time at DC and Marvel. It's like college. And as opposed to the pinnacle of your career used to be DC and Marvel in the comic business. And just what your thoughts are on that, seeing that change in the business.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's incredible and wonderful that so many people can get stuff published without just going to Marvel or DC or Archie or Dell or...
Sure, Dell. Yes, please. Bring back the monster heroes of Dell.
I was thinking getting some more ducks,
Sure,
That
man.
was Scrooge.
Absolutely, that's awesome. Folks, any final Venom thoughts as we wrap up? It's all the show's almost over as well.
Hey, can I just ask you, what was the number run? I know you wrote Spider-Man, but the...
Amount?
No, I know you wrote on Spider-Man, but in terms of Amazing Spider-Man, in terms of the number, as far as when your run started and when it ended, I was trying to remember.
For Amazing?
Yeah, for
specifically?
Amazing.
I think it was... I think I started regularly at like 294 or 5. And then, I don't know, my last one, there were some fill-ins, but I think my last one was 285, 385 maybe.
So it was like right after Roger Stern's run in Amazing, in terms of who you succeeded as far as the writer. Who was right before you?
I think the people just before me were some fill-ins. I don't remember who, that sounds right, but I don't remember who it was.
I just asking, because like number 289 was kind of that historic issue where Ned Leeds died as Hobgoblin, and I didn't know if you were, I know it was right before you started, if you were involved in that decision to make Ned Leeds.
No, at that time I was writing web,
Okay.
so I was pretty concentrating on that.
Okay. Because then they filled in, Web 30, I think they did the whole backstory about Ned Leeds being the Hobgoblin. Of course, they then changed it, but, I don't know, thoughts on that work.
Well, regardless, Dave, great body of work. Glad to hear that you've got some cool new stuff that you're running through as well. And I hope they at least invite you to the red carpet for Venom.
It's Sony, it's not Marvel, but I asked my contacts at Marvel. They said, they asked Sony, and Sony said, yeah, but I haven't gotten my invitation yet.
I hear you. I hear
So I may be my local multiplier.
Don't use movie pass.
You get a credit in the movie?
Oh, that's a good,
I
yeah.
have no idea. They've been pretty good. Special thanks to with the stuff that they've used of mine in Marvel, but I have no idea what Sony's going to do.
Are you being, more importantly, compensated for your contribution with Venom?
According to my contract that I wrote, that I signed with them, I'm supposed to, but that was with Marvel, and I don't know if there's an out because this is Sony, but we will see.
I hope so.
So after October 5th, if you see the headlines of David Michelinie files a lawsuit against Sony.
Interesting. No, it's only right, and I'm glad that at least it seems in the last few years you guys are getting compensation for
It's
your
better, it's
contributions.
definitely better, at least from Marvel.
Okay.
I haven't dealt with DC about that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You should, more to come. Well, dude, honestly, I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate your candor and your continued creative output. So please, continued success, and I hope to talk again.
Well, I appreciate everyone who stayed all this time. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.